Starting with nothing, how to bootstrap your business. Hello, everyone. I'm going to actually take a second here and say hi. I know we have a lot of people who are already chatting in our feed. So thank you guys so much for being here with us today. And just let me know, actually, I'm curious. I know we always say where we're watching from, but if you could do me a favor and let me know if you are in isolation right now at your house. I'm just curious how many of us are obviously essential people that have to be out working right now, or if you're at home. So let us know in the chat. Hi, Michael, Tom, Kelly. I know we have Lawrence. Thank you guys all so much for popping in. Oh gosh, it's catching up, so bear with us. Odin, Stephanie, Eric, Sean Reed, thank you guys all. Oh, Raymond over on YouTube. I love seeing people come from YouTube. We're pushing that channel a lot. So if you haven't, oh, and Chris over on YouTube as well. And Steve with some Eclipse Sunbox System. Thank you guys all so much for coming. Again, I'm just curious if you're at home or if you are if you're in isolation at home, or if you are one of the ones that has to be working right now. I say has to, but I'm privileged to be able to work right now. So thank you. Yes, definitely. Tom, good. I'm glad. Mary, welcome. And John, gosh, we have a ton of people here today. So I'm excited to have a special guest. I know we've had him on before. So we have Simon Solotko, Chief Marketing Officer for IdeaPros, and I'm going to get him in with us. Hey, Simon.
Hi, Tessa. Hi, everybody.
Glad to have. We're actually going over bootstrapping, and one of the biggest questions that I have really is, what is bootstrapping? What is it really? I know we hear it a lot, but tell us what it is and how you're going to kind of talk through it with us.
Sure, Tessa, no problem. So, it's funny, as I was preparing, I had the opportunity to look up other people's definitions of bootstrapping, and I chose not to. And the reason is because my experience has been a certain way, and I wanted to at least provide how I've experienced it personally and take you through that experience-based approach to bootstrapping and what it's meant and some of the pitfalls and how to do it. So we're going to talk through some of the big pillars of how to successfully bootstrap. It is hard. It requires a lot of luck. It requires a tremendous amount of vigilance. The thing that you want to think of when you think about bootstrapping is, how do I do the most with the least? How do I take advantage of the resources that are around me so that I can maximize my probability of success, my ability to control the destiny of the business, and at the same time, ensure that I have a great share of the business, that I'm not giving away a lot of the business early on. And giving away that business has financial implications. It also has control implications. It also may limit your capital options later down the road. Sometimes people raise money poorly early, and this can have lasting detriments to the business. So bootstrapping is all about using resources at hand to start a business and get to liftoff. That's what you're trying to accomplish with bootstrapping. And to be successful in bootstrapping, you need a great idea, you need a really powerful team, and you need really creative avenues of financing and business building.
Great. Actually, I was going to bring it up on the screen, but our live stream is saying that it's too busy for me to put them on the screen. So I'm sad about that, but go ahead and start on in the first one, Simon, because technology is not always cooperative.
All right.
That works. So, first one with the idea.
Sure. So, having a good idea is critical when you're trying to start with very little and achieve early success. Evaluating that idea critically and making sure it's the one is really important. In bootstrapping, because you're using resources around you and often building things, building up in kind of a lean business way, building a minimum viable product, getting to market, demonstrating early success, that's what you want to do. To have all those things work, the idea itself has to be well suited to bootstrapping. What does that mean? It has to be relatively simple. I work a lot in technology, and one of the things I say is, you can mold plastic, you can do electronics, you can write software, you can do things in the cloud, and then you can try to make it all waterproof. If you try to do all those things at once, it's going to be very, very hard. So
too many requirements.
Yeah, too many requirements, too complex. And each of those modes of production winds up creating exponential risk across the integration of those pieces. So I love a startup that's all about molding plastic. I love a startup that's all about a beautiful piece of woodwork designed into a relatively small and usable functional product that brings either joy or utility. I love a very simple piece of electronics. I like a simple piece of software. I like something that's just in the cloud. Those simplicities tend to be well suited to resource constrained businesses. You're not Apple. You can't bring multidisciplinary expertise and modes of production to your problem. You've got one good shot, which takes me to the next thing, which is within this idea. Ideally, it's something you know how to do, or at least you know enough about how to do it or how to get it done that you can take it to that first step. Now, you're not going to have all the pieces, but the more of that that's already a part of you, whether it's a knowledge of the market, a knowledge of the community, a very specific product idea, the ability to get anything, as long as you've got a big chunk of what it's going to take for that first product to make it to that first takeoff step, the better off you are. The other thing is the idea has to be a product that's going to earn some margins. It has to be relatively cheap to make, has to be relatively expensive or high value for consumers or businesses. If it isn't designed to make money, you're going to find that the decision to make more of them is always going to be a bad decision. You don't want to have that mental dilemma. And then the last thing, the idea, there is more weight on the idea with bootstrapping because you kind of get one shot at it. Now, in other kinds of business startup scenarios, sometimes you do more iterative stuff or more technology, so you just kind of build up technology before you get to product. In a pure bootstrap, where you're trying to move quickly, maintain control, and use a limited number of resources, potentially you think in your head nothing, that Gen 1 product really does need to be successful. So it really pays to do research, qualify your audience, have the audience actually play with early prototypes, any of those things to ensure that when you actually launch it in those early phases, you're going to get takeoff.
He went through those so fast, Simon. That was awesome, though. That was a really comprehensive list of things that you need to do. You need to be aware of when thinking on your idea as far as bootstrapping. The last one that you mentioned too, the Gen 1 product, that it could be something that, well, you want it to be right the first time, right? So I know I saw somebody who asked a question about that earlier as far as the versions of. So we're just thinking one version and we're going to get it right because we don't have money to mess up.
And by the way, I have seen many a time people try to make the Gen 1 version way too complicated with too many variants. It can kill a business. You really want that Gen 1 version to use this, and this is out there in the literature. It needs to be a minimum viable product. What that means is it's good enough to get a lot of people stoked, but not the whole universe. And it has to be simple enough that if you fail making it, you don't cause yourself a lifetime of pain. You really need something relatively simple early in the stages of the business that can take off. And that's really that minimum threshold. And with bootstrapping, you don't want to go much beyond that.
I think we also have a lot of people who watch from a mobile app standpoint too. And I know you talked about that technology-wise, and mobile apps are something that you could bootstrap theoretically, right? So if you're doing that, one of the biggest mistakes that people make with their first mobile app design is putting too many features in. Period. They just want it to do everything. And so we do have an article on the website, as I see a lot of our mobile app people online today. So check that out just so you don't end up in that spot where you're really committing to too much on that first version.
But there is something I will say about mobile app features. There's, in my mind, when you're bootstrapping, since we're thinking about this particular problem, there is one killer feature in every mobile app that will help it to successfully bootstrap. And that is it has to have the ability to grow an audience. There have to be features endemic in the app which help it gain traction. It can't just be a great app. It has to be a great and contagious app.
Right, viral. Like people are going to share it.
We won't talk about that right now.
Pardon the pun. So actually, a couple people are jumping ahead. So if you're asking me about funding during the first steps of
We got a
bootstrapping,
whole
hang
section on that.
on. Yeah, we have a whole section on it. So don't be patient. I promise we're going to get to it. Before we go there, though, the first one was idea. So the second one that you wanted to cover is team. Are you ready to dive into that now?
Sure.
All right. So how do we make sure that we're bootstrapping, that we have the right team for that bootstrapping?
Sure. So, Tessa, you know me well, and you know one of the things I value is a lean, decisive team. I hate arguing about unimportant things. I don't have the energy for it. When you are in a startup, there is a lot of friction that can come from different personalities and a poorly composed team. An early bootstrap company needs a minimum complement of decision makers with a shared vision. And the smarter they are and the more focused they are on their area, the better off you are. Once you've got that small, specialized, and decisive team, you've got a shot at success. I say this because if you try to bring in people who really don't understand what their role is or what their stake in the startup is, it creates ambiguity and ultimately can cause resentment. In addition, if you have too many competing ideas, especially when you're trying to bootstrap, that singularity of vision that moves you quickly will break. Having said that, it is important always to respect what I call the ability to recognize the right answer. In a startup, you can't be overly philosophical. You have to get the right answer. You have to do the right thing. I know that sounds a little weird, but you can't preoccupy yourself with minor details that don't add value and spend too much energy on decisions that ultimately don't determine success. And when you have multiple people, colleagues, friends, and advisors, you really have to get good at discerning when you are wrong and someone else is right. When there is a better idea that builds on something that you had started but takes it to that next level, and you have to embrace that idea quickly. So you have to be smart and not stubborn and surround yourself with as good a people as you possibly can, because those good ideas can feed off of one another and ultimately can succeed. But again, small team, focused decision making, open-mindedness, and again, this machinery in your head, some humility, embrace always the best idea. Don't let your ego get in the way. The other thing I'm going to say this, and I call that caving in. You've got to learn how to cave in.
I was going to say caving in and doing it quickly, not waiting till the last minute.
There's one more really important attribute in your team. I like having a combination of people who are enthusiastic and less experienced, and people who are super experienced and have a big set of case studies in their brain, which can help them better navigate strategic success and failure. Failure is critical. If you don't have members of your team who have failed in business ventures before, it's going to be a lot harder for them to accept that they might be wrong. And you at least want a portion of your team. It doesn't have to be everybody, but at least you want some people, whether it's advisors, whether or not it's a partner, you want people who have been there, done that, failed and succeeded. Because when they fail, they learn how to listen. And when they succeed, they learn how to be visionary and to reach. And you need that combination of expertise on your team. So you need some people with experience who have succeeded and failed. You don't want to go out into battle without people who have been there before.
And failure is not a 4-letter word, so it's really important. It needs to be in your business. It needs to be around you, because you can't learn. You either win or you learn, right? So that we've done lots of shows on, but I definitely wanted to give that a big extra thumbs up.
That's right. So all these ideas tied together, and kind of a third big pillar is financing. And when I say financing, don't just think about money. Think about all the resources that you will bring together to build your business. The most important resource and the most expensive one is human capital, otherwise known as elbow grease. Your business is going to require a huge amount of elbow grease, and your commitment to putting in that elbow grease is critical. the commitment of the people you bring into the project to make that commitment is critical. Those human hours have huge value. And as an entrepreneur, your time is extremely valuable, but so are the contributions, and sometimes more so the contributions of the people working with you. So if you can get people to help contribute their time, that can be super powerful. It really helps when this new venture complements whatever lifestyle or job you currently have. That way you have more time and more cycles and more synergies between what you're doing today and what you're doing in the future. If you already have a service business and you want to productize that, that really helps, because then you've got a base of repeatable business, but then you know how to extend it. Now, a lot of you may be thinking, well, maybe my idea, as I say all these things, doesn't fit these things. You do have to ask yourself the hard question. If your idea is too hard to get done, you probably want to go get another idea. And don't take that as a sign of failure. You know, the great entrepreneurs of our day have always got a new idea, and it's really their entrepreneurial spirit that helps to drive that to success. It's not just the one idea. My first and greatest idea for an invention that I pursued a patent for and so on, that idea turned out to be too hard to productize too early. But the direction and the vision of it defined my entire career thereafter. So don't worry about the idea as something that you have to stay with. Embrace the entrepreneurial spirit. Start down the road with an idea and then work with others to shape and mold the idea and the vision into something that is ready for the moment, can be made quickly, and can go forward and be successful. All right, let's talk more about financing.
Yes, more on financing. I was just going to come on with you.
It helps to have team members who have some money. And if you get poor team members who can contribute elbow grease, that's a win. If you get rich team members who can contribute money and not a lot of elbow grease, but don't create a lot of noise, that's a win. So it's often the early composition of the team that can help you bring some money into the business. Friends and family are tricky, but I think all businesses rely on friends and family in some form or another, and bringing in some money from them is certainly helpful. I have seen many circumstances where friends and family were in a great position to give money and didn't. And the founder went out and did, you know, the thing that often happens is they maxed out their credit cards, and it worked. But the only reason that worked was because they had the great idea. They had all of their time devoted to the idea, and they decided, you know, in engaging with the potential community of users, that it was a win. It was going to get somewhere.
It was an educated decision.
It was an informed decision. Yes, educated, informed, all those things. And so, yeah, they maxed out all their credit cards to go forward. They maxed out their credit cards to pay the team. They maxed out the credit cards to go to Kickstarter. They maxed out the credit cards to get a great prototype and get their manufacturing partner to walk with them. All of those things, and that, you know, $50,000 or $60,000 initial investment became a business that 2 years in has multiple millions of dollars in revenue. It can happen. It works, but it does rely again on these other pillars: the great team, the great idea, the testing with the audience, and so forth. So credit cards, max out your credit cards. People do it now.
Oh, and we just did a show recently about the credit card options, so financing options. Fred covered quite a few and ways that you can do it so it's a minimal, you know, interest rate for you. So we'll put that in the chat for you guys.
Now, all of these things kind of get you up to the point of maybe having a minimum viable product, something that might be ready to crowdfund or pre-sell. At IdeaPros, we insert another step in before that, which is we start very early on in building an audience. And I encourage this of all of the successful crowdfunded projects I have ever worked on. Their success is in large measure gated by how early they started to get their product into the minds and hearts of their audience, and collect information on who their audience was, where they were, get email addresses, those kinds of things. So that cycle of starting to generate interest early in your product, that takes time to bake. That time, if you don't have that time, it winds up costing you money. So a great way to bootstrap is to start building your audience very early in the process, so that when you're just ready to start getting some revenue in through pre-sales or crowdfunding, that will be successful. And you don't have to buy that audience. You've already got that audience. It turns out that getting investment dollars from what I'll call third parties, investors, is a real pain in the butt. They're hard to deal with. They want a lot of the company often, and they don't necessarily bring a lot of expertise or value in. And generally, those people are ready to. They're very conservative generally, and they invest way later than you may have in your mind. So it turns out going out and getting investment dollars for something that really hasn't demonstrated success is a total pain in the ass. If you have had a successful crowdfunding campaign and you do have some revenue and you've just started sales, money starts to open up for you. Working capital opens up. So if you successfully bootstrap and demonstrate early success, something magical happens at the end of that first rainbow, which is working capital dollars start to materialize. In that way, if you can successfully bootstrap, and then you can successfully get that early product sales curve, money starts popping out. PayPal will give you a loan. Amazon will give you a loan. Clearbank will give you a loan. There are all sorts of financing services for young e-commerce companies, e.g. young companies that are selling their stuff online like everybody should be, that can really give you an advantage. And so the problem is getting there. You really have to get to that point. But just know that at the end of that cycle, that first round of crowdfunding, and that early phase of product sales, at that point, magic money does start to appear, both from your own revenue and potentially from these other sources. So the good news is bootstrapping often leads you to a place that has opening opportunities rather than diminishing ones.
That's beautiful. We covered so much in this amount of time so far. Simon, thank you so much.
Let's do Q&A. I mean, I would love to
Q&A.
engage everybody. So anybody who's got a question, feel free to chime in. I went through things quickly, as Tessa said.
Yeah, we did. We made great time. So if you guys have a question, put it in the chat. I think I haven't seen any questions yet. So maybe if you did ask a question, go ahead and put it in there again so I can get to it. But while we're waiting and letting you guys go ahead and reply. Oh, thanks, Michael. He's just said great show. A lot of people have been saying that. So it is. Actually, I just wanted to say one thing, and that is that Simon has this amazing, he actually did one of our previous shows about crowdfunding. So if you have questions about crowdfunding, that show has, again, when in Simon's true form, a lot of information packed into it. So we'll definitely put that in the chat as well to get you guys back there. And so how to grow your team, where to look? That's a great question, Guinevere. I'm actually going to put that up. Simon, do you want to take that one?
Sure, of course. Take any questions. So it is hard to build a team. The critical attribute for the team is that they can actually contribute to the project, ideally in a way that's not generic, but like very specific, like, you know, someone knows a lot about the thing you're trying to build or how to build it. I've spent a lifetime accumulating some of those people so that when I get that idea, they're there for me. So start early, right? If you're like, oh, this is something I want to do in 2 years, start identifying these people early on. Networking works, right? So local networking, online networking, engaging people in online conversations who are already in the domain of your product or solution. You know, if you want to do something in cosmetics, engage people who are interested in cosmetics, engage influencers who are interested in cosmetics. Try to engage people who know how to make cosmetics. Right, you've got to really start putting out your feelers as early as possible. It will also help you understand what the potential ways you could work with people are. Now, networking is a thing that I have a love-hate relationship with networking. Ultimately, you need a small number of people to do critical things. So as long as you have in your mind not to get distracted by the well of people and thoughts and ideas, and instead say, I built a plan and I know what that plan is. And these are the things, these are the holes I need to fill. And I'm going to go try to find the people to fill those holes. That's the right way to do it. Which brings me back to something, Tessa. So yeah. More content for everybody who stayed. If you can't write down your plan, you're going to fail. Let me put that out there. If you can't write down all your great ideas in as few documents as possible, and then share those ideas with these potential team members, you're going to fail, because there's no way to build cumulative and complex ideas without writing things down. Language is not just a way to communicate, it's a way to warehouse and accumulate knowledge. So as you build out your business idea, don't think, I need a business plan. Think instead, I need to write down everything necessary to get this thing off the ground. How to design it, what its features are, what its capabilities are, how I might message it, what my timeline might look at. And you're like, well, I don't know about any of these things. Go read a book or two, start writing crap down, refine. Doesn't be perfect the first time. If you do that, then you'll have something you can share with potential teammates and advisors, snippets of text that will help them understand what you're trying to do and see if there's a fit.
And it's good for you to write it down anyway, because you're not going to accomplish anything that you haven't written down. And just generally speaking,
What I say,
yeah.
you are in the top 90th percentile of business management if you simply make lists.
So start there, guys. We also had a couple more questions. So besides sales, what other criteria would lenders or funding institutions look for?
They're very quantitative. So they always look at the numbers. And the ones especially that are the easy money for e-commerce companies comes from people who look at your Amazon numbers, they look at your .com sales, they like it if you have Shopify or stuff like that because they can plug into that. And they can actually, machine learning, artificial intelligence has become a big deal in lending now. It's the next trend. All they do is have these little agents watch your data and they give you an offer based on that. Very quantitative analysis. It's not based on your credit history. It's based on the quantitative metrics of the business. Now, often you will have to collateralize some of these loans, sometimes not. So the key thing is they will look at your numbers, which is why I say you want those numbers to be good, which is why you needed an audience early. You needed a great idea. You need that to take off so that those early analytical analyses will yield good results and good loan offers.
Wow. Well, do you have time for a couple more? Because I know we have okay, perfect. And actually, John, you asked a question over on YouTube about, we were talking about caving in, and that was in reference to being able to realize when your idea needs to be revised, right? So can you say that again, Simon, just so we can capture that? I know we cut out for
willingness to be wrong. Right? You have to learn to recognize when you're wrong and another idea is right. I encourage organizations to build a culture of truth. Truth and trust. It's hard to build these things, but you really need to learn to trust your people, and you need to learn to elevate the best idea without prejudice. And so that means sometimes you need to learn to cave in, and your people need to learn somehow to cave in to an idea that wasn't in their brain at the start.
Or to stand up and say, when
stand up or say what
members that have it fine. So is it wise to leverage social media to do ads before the official product launch? I love this one because this is a marketing one. That and what is the best way to do so, Simon?
Counterpoint. You can tell me what you think. So I generally find running social ads early on does not have good ROI because it creates it can create challenges. Having said that, at IdeaPros, we do some very clever things to attempt to create extremely efficient social advertisements early in the life of a product before it comes to market to generate interest. But generally, the answer is no. Specifically, the answer is only if you're super clever. Having said that, even when you do launch your product, those social ads may not be as efficient as you want. That's why I talked early about profitability. It can cost $5 to $10 per click, per transaction for a good product. So you've got to make sure you got that $5 to $10 of juice in there so you can afford to buy those clicks. If you don't have that much profit, you're toast. It turns out that there's kind of this sweet spot where if your product is too cheap, it's very hard to advertise it and have cost per click advertising be efficient. So that's why I like products that cost $50 or $100, because then there's some more juice in there to pay for those clicks and those transactions. Generally, the best approach early on is content-based marketing. Get an idea that people are excited about, start showing them, build subscribers, build a synergistic content channel with that product. I call it sometimes a community of interest. Build a Facebook group, which is all about that area or domain. And that's how you get an early audience. Once you've got an early audience that hopefully you built for elbow grease more than money, then when it comes time to activate that product online to start selling, it's affordable to do so. So you really get two benefits. You get time and content get you an audience early, and then it's cheaper to convert them once you've got them when you start selling.
Perfect. You did a great job. You covered it all. I definitely think building your community and building your list early, getting the people, elbow grease to get out there on social media. It's not about ads as much as it is about just literally diving into the content that's out there, or start writing about the topics that are relevant and yet don't hit on your specific idea yet. So get active in participating in, forums or groups.
Let's say that you're not good at writing. Find a teammate who is. This is a great example of where often, and that's often a role I play when I do marketing, one of my core attributes is I can write. I don't think I write perfectly, but I write quickly and I write good marketing stuff, and I write everything. And so that's one of the attributes I bring to a team. Those attributes are valuable when you build a business. You need people who can engage that community, and that's one of those holes or skill sets that you may need to fill.
Last question. I know you guys are all staying, and we have so many people who are still saying hi and sticking around for us. So thank you guys. One last question about initial team members, and do they normally have ownership in the business, or are they just advisors?
All right. There are several ways to do this. There aren't right ways or wrong ways, but there are ways to screw them all up. It's a complicated topic. You don't want to bring someone onto the team as an owner who's going to leave, 6 months in. Mm-hmm. I like doing vesting for everybody. Vesting is good. Vesting helps ensure that people's contribution is commensurate with their benefit. Some entrepreneurs are clever and can find ways to accumulate capital and resources so that they can pay people in cash. And if they can do that, they can retain ownership. But I always recommend some sharing to show that you're not a demon. The other problem is people often don't want to make the investment in the legal stuff to basically become a C Corp and to divide ownership. I tend to encourage young companies to do that early. If you get corporate formation right and you get how you can structure the business to share a little ownership, and you formalize that early through the formation of a corporation, especially if you know your idea is going to fly, then you can do magical things with attracting teammates that you can't do if those formal structures aren't in place. When those formal structures aren't in place, people always get burned. I don't care what your intention is, people will get burned. Either you'll get burned, they'll get burned, something will happen.
Well, thank you so much, Simon. I think we've crammed a ton into this one episode. So guys, if you could take just a second and write down any nugget, whatever the main thing you pulled away from this session was, we'd really appreciate it. I know we had lots of comments in here, so I appreciate you all for being here. Every Friday at noon Pacific time, we cover entrepreneurial topics so that you guys can really make the most impact as business owners, as inventors, as people who are really making a difference in the world, no matter where you are, if that's at home or in a work environment today. Thank you guys. And Simon, do you have a final thought that you want to leave people with? I know Fred's, I always make him do it, so it's up to you if you want to.
While you're at home, think about your new business. Think about your entrepreneurial idea. Start writing some things down. There is no better time than now. I think we all need good distractions. We all need reasons to engage with former colleagues. What better thing than your entrepreneurial idea and your future and your legacy?
Perfect. Thank you all so much. We will see you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, everyone.